Larry Berman, where are we today?
Well, we're in a, I think, very disturbing and ironic position where we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, but the Voting Rights Act has been gutted, and there's been a much broader attack on voting rights. So from 2011 to 2015, 468 new voting restrictions have been introduced in 49 states. So this is a battle that's taken place all across the country to try to make it harder to vote. Half the states in the country have passed new laws making it harder to vote since 2010. So that was the backdrop to the Supreme Court's decision that gutted the Voting Rights Act and allowed those states with the worst histories of voting discrimination, places like Alabama, Texas, Mississippi, to no longer have to approve their voting changes with the federal government. So voters are being hit from all sides here. They're being hit by new voting restrictions, making it harder for young people, minorities, women to be able to vote. And they're also being hit by a Supreme Court that gutted the Voting Rights Act, ironically, at the very moment when the Voting Rights Act was needed so much after all these new voting restrictions had been passed.
In one chapter, Chapter 8, you begin your story with Willie Steen, a Navy veteran of the Persian Gulf War, who was attempting to vote in the 2000 election in his hometown in Tampa, Florida. And could you talk about his situation and also the importance of the Florida election and then the Supreme Court Bush-Gore decision on that? I want to turn to comments made by Justice Antonin Scalia during oral arguments in Shelby versus Holder. He suggested certain provisions of the Voting Rights Act were a form of, quote, racial entitlement.
I think it is attributed, very likely attributable to a phenomenon that is called perpetuation of racial entitlement. It's been written about. Whenever a society adopts racial entitlements, it is very difficult to get out of them through the normal political processes.
Yeah, that was Justice Scalia, but we do actually have a video that having to do with Willie Steen. Now, I want to turn to investigative reporter Greg Palast, one of the leading journalists to expose voter disenfranchisement in Florida during the 2000 election. This is an excerpt of the film Bush Family Fortune.
Thousands of black voters, when they showed up to vote, were turned away because they were listed on voter registers as convicted criminals. But were they? I met with Willie Steen. Like 94,000 others, he'd been tagged a criminal. He was not allowed to vote in Florida because Jebb's elections officials said he was a felon.
So, Willie, fess up. Are you a criminal?
No. No criminal at all. Never been convicted of any crime.
But they had you down as a felon.
Yes, they did, but not me. Wrong person. I've never been arrested in my life, you know. Was in the military for 4 years. Got out of the military, been in the medical field ever since. I mean, you can't even work for a hospital being a convicted felon. And I was in the Persian Gulf War in '91. Fought in the war, so, you know, it's pretty screwed up how they did me, but what can I say?